hosting the Council for East and Central Africa Football Association, CECAFA, Under-18 competition in Kakamega and Kisumu was Kenya's Football Comes Home moment.
The 2023 Under-18 CECAFA tournament invoked the Western region memories that are similar to England's 1966 World Cup nostalgia.
The region is undeniably the spiritual home of Kenyan football.
Football is in my blood because my father played football.
The obsession with soccer has also been credited to individual teachers and school heads.
Came to Kakamega High School for Form 1. That's when I met Mr. Chris Makoha.
Football has its own history. And the history of football started in Maseno. Football started in Maseno, Luanda, some years back.
Like Madam Doris has said, we've engaged both with the national government and with the county government.
The CECAFA brought football home.
The School Sports Focus starts right now.
When Naftali Temu won the 10,000 meters race and Kipkeino pulled the 1,500 meters shocker in the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City, the two athletes set off an era of Kenya's dominance in long-distance running.
In the book East African Running, John Bell explains how the East African country, which roughly accounts for the 0.5% of the world population, has won 51% of the male long-distance races, from 800 meters to the marathon.
Yet what many people outside Kenya don't know is that these world-beating athletes come from high-altitude regions of Kenya.
Okay, the Rift Valley counties have got the names, about slogans, about athletics. We begin from Nandi County, where it is. We call it the source of champions. If we go to Eldoret, we say the city of champions. If we go to Elgeyo Marakwet, we say home of champions. If you look at the terrains of these three counties, powers in the sports, it is hilly, and of course, the temperatures are high. Where we are standing here, the altitude is 22,000 plus, which actually enables an athlete to have good hemoglobin or oxygen exchange in terms of training. Actually, the extent of this field, we have got a very long escarpment of mount. So you can see there's a good oxygen that assists the athlete. Number two, the terrain. It gives endurance. So when a child is born naturally walking is a natural part of the point this area. As opposed to Nairobi and other places whereby walking is supported by the other machines.
Researchers have found out that the success by Kenyan running machines is due to the combination of chronic high-altitude exposure and endurance training at childhood.
The start point Mali walianzia huko has got an altitude of 1,612 feet above sea level. Where we are now with the finishing point, at this point here, it is 9,990 feet above sea level. And therefore they have covered 8,388 feet running from down there, coming all the way. You can imagine the amount of running, the amount of climbing, and the amount of effort. So it requires a lot of training, And therefore, next time, before you come to run here, please train well so that we avoid any injuries and something like that.
The exposure induces hematological adaptations required for long races.
Mimi nimeona watoto wadogo wale wanakimbia, nimeona wamama wa miaka 70, miaka 60, wazee wa miaka 70 wanakimbia kama vijana. Nimefurahia sana. Na mkinialika mwaka ujao nitakuja.
what about the popularity of soccer in Kenya?
While track events are trendy in Kenya's high-altitude areas, such as Nandi Hills, the obsession with soccer in Nyanza and Western region is on another level.
It's for this reason that hosting the Council for East and Central Africa Football Association, CECAFA, Under-18 competition in Kakamega and Kisumu was Kenya's football comes home moment, as the England soccer fans would have said.
Football Coming Home is a chorus of a song that takes you back to the finest moment of English football, the 1966 FIFA World Cup.
It was in 1966 that England won what is up to date its only major football championship, the World Cup.
The 2023 Under-18 CECAFA tournament invoked the Western region memories that are similar to England's 1966 World Cup nostalgia.
Football came home because CECAFA revived the feel-good enthusiasm of the Gossage Cup era, when key players in the national team were from the Western region.
Since the nostalgic Gossage Cup era, Kisumu and Kakamega have remained the homes of top-notch Kenyan soccer players.
The region is undeniably the spiritual home of Kenyan football.
According to Professor Bukala, a sports science expert who has been involved in organizing grassroots tournaments,
ili tuanze kufikiria kama watu wa Ikolomani, tutakuwa na competition hii, ikiisha tutakuwa na competition ya words.
Popularity of football in the Western region of Kenya can be attributed to pioneer Gossage Cup stars.
Edu Channel School Sports Focus, bringing you stories about emerging talents.
To understand why the 2023 CECAFA Under-18 was a football come-home moment, one needs to recall the nostalgic moments for Kenya in the soccer rivalry with other East African countries.
The football rivalry between Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda began over 90 years ago when CECAFA was played under the title sponsorship of Gossage, a soap manufacturing company.
The Gossage Cup ran from 1926 to 1965 before it metamorphosed to the East African Senior Challenge Cup in 1967.
The competition was renamed CECAFA in 1973 after inclusion of several Eastern African countries.
CECAFA is currently an 11-member association, with 10 of them recognized by FIFA: Uganda, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Djibouti, Burundi, Somalia, Rwanda, Sudan, Tanzania, and Kenya.
The 11th, Zanzibar, is still chasing association status with the World Soccer Governing Body.
Gossage, the name of the initial CECAFA sponsor, mutated in a manner comparable to how the tournament changed its names.
The names began when the soap manufacturer was acquired and renamed by its British competitor, Unilever. Unilever later merged with a government-owned factory and was renamed East African Industries.
A Google search unearthed a 1953 House of Commons Hansard record of the Secretary of State for the Colonies confirming to the British Parliament that the Colonial Development Corporation and the Government of Kenya had agreed to merge the East African Industries with the British multinational Unilever.
That is how Gossage became East African Industries. In 1990s, the government of Kenya was bought out of East African Industries and the company renamed Unilever Kenya Limited.
Gossage Cup stars such as Joe Kadenge, Jonathan Liva, Levi Kayadi, Paul Serenge Amwai, and Elijah Lidonde are recognized as having made the Western region the spiritual home of soccer in Kenya.
Another contributor was pioneer schools in the region, the Maseno Central School and the Government African School Kakamega, are recognized as having boosted the soccer craze in the region.
Football has its own history, and the history of football started in Maseno. Football started in Maseno, Rwanda, some years back, by the Chimotos, the late Chimoto, Shem Chimoto, who played with my late father, Paul Serenge, the Mukaisis, the Oronges, the Ominos. All those are names from Western, Nyanza and Western. That's where the history is. And remember, to football is not about in Western. Football is not just a game, it's a religion.
It is for these reasons that hosting CECAFA in Kisumu and Kakamega was a football come home moment.
The building of modern stadiums, Bukungu in Kakamega and Jomo Kenyatta in Kisumu, allowed CECAFA and Kenya football in general to come home.
Elijah Lidonde's family has taken the football development matters in their own hands.
The family organizes the annual Elijah Lidonde Memorial Cup tournament in Kakamega every December.
The kids that I can tell in the high school right now is just prepare yourself. Keep yourself busy. Make sure that you don't mix up with these other guys that like smoking or drinking. Drinking will never help.
Fred Serenge is another descendant of the Gossage Cup legends involved in soccer development.
My father was an ex-international. Played Gossage Cup, played for the national team. I come from a sporty family. My brothers all played football. My sister played volleyball for the national team for many years, Judy Serenge, with Kenya Pipeline and the national team. My brother Morris, the late, played for Mumias Sugar in Mumias in the Premier League. My brother Joe Serenge, the mayor, played for Kisumu Breweries. My brother Festus played for Rivertex, Tusker. My brother Anthony played for Motcom here in the Premier League. I played for FC. I played for Tusker. I'm an ex-international, and it's a family affair. It's a brand. My son, Kevin Amwai, played for the national team, plays for Homeboys. My daughter, Marian Musanga, played for the national team, captain, Archbishop Njenga Girls.
The Serenge family is a sports talent dynasty.
The Serenges have contributed in various ways in developing sports at the grassroots level.
For Wina Shilabula, football is hereditary.
Football is in my blood because my father played football, even for Abaluya, then Abaluya, which is now AFC Leopards. And in our family, we have an array of footballers. So the motivation was obvious. It was available. Internationally, of course, we would have wanted to play as an international player. And I did that. I'm happy that I was able to represent this country in the AFCON 1993-94.
The obsession with soccer has also been credited to individual teachers and school heads.
The role of the late Chris Makoha in the developing passion for soccer cannot be gainsaid.
The Kakamega School physics teacher and school coach, who also trained the national team, developed many soccer talents in the region.
Washington Muhaji, one of the best goalkeepers Kenya has ever produced, acknowledges the impact of Chris Makoha on shaping his soccer career.
I started playing football at a very early age. Maybe in 1973 when I was still small. Started playing in the youth centers. Came to Kakamega High School for Form 1. That's when I met Mr. Chris Makoha and joined the Green Commandos. I'm an origin of Kakamega Green Commandos. From there, my football career really developed. I've played football since that time with Motcom FC, AFC Leopards, Bandari, and the national team for 14 years. And right now, I am a football instructor, a FIFA grade B instructor in football.
The part of the Kakamega Musingu soccer rivalry is cementing the football mania cannot be disputed.
When talking about development of sports, one group of dedicated leaders who shouldn't be forgotten are the much-hated colonial chiefs.
Professor Sorobeo Bogonko believed that although the chiefs were branded sellouts who collaborated with European colonialists, collaboration cannot be all that the chiefs did.
The late educationist gave tribute to colonial chiefs for developing secular schools that challenged missionary schools.
The indigenous leaders accused the colonial government of prioritizing and teaching of evangelism and artisan training over the provision of literary and intellectual education.
The African leaders coveted education that was similar to what the Europeans were getting.
Through the local native council, the chiefs fundraised and built non-denominational government African schools in their territories.
It was in these schools that modern sports were introduced in Kenya.
Some of the native schools that became modern-day academic and sports giants are Government African Schools, Machakos, Government African School, Kakamega, Government African School, Meru, Government African School, Kisii, and Kagumo Government African School.
The Gossage Cup star, Elijah Lidonde, is among the footballers of international stature produced by the Government African School Kakamega, now known as Kakamega School.
These contributions to development of soccer is in addition to the famous Chiefs football tournaments.
Following the increase in appetite for international matches after CECAFA brought football home, the soccer fraternity in Kakamega and Kisumu started pressurizing the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations local organizing committee to bring home the continental tourney.
3 Lake region neighbors, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, will jointly host the AFCON 2027 tournament.
Before we finish the program, here is a short biography of one of the 2023 CECAFA host cities, Kakamega Town. Edu Channel, the national educator.
Kakamega is a town in Western Kenya, the headquarters of Kakamega County.
The county headquarters sits about 30 kilometers north of the equator.
The town started after a failed gold rush.
According to Professor Priscilla Shilaro, a professor of history at the West Virginia University, the town is what can be called a failed El Dorado.
El Dorado was a mythical city in South America, a city that the 16th century Spanish explorers believed had extraordinary gold reserves. Existence of the gold city remains a fairy tale. Neither the explorers nor the modern-day mineralogists have found one.
Reminiscent of the futile Spanish expeditions in search of El Dorado in South America, British explorers grabbed land from the Luya people of Western Kenya to establish gold mines after geologist Albert Ernest Kitson's report to the Colonial Office.
Kitson reported that possibly as much as half of the gold being prospected in Western Kenya was wasted by amateur techniques.
The news started as a Kenyan gold rush, with European settler farmers and prospectors pitching camp around what came to be known as Kakamega. The amateur miners' expectations were to find a real El Dorado, or at least to replicate the gold rush that led to the establishment of Johannesburg.
The extraordinary gold deposits were not found as the amateur prospectors anticipated, but their influx bore what is Kakamega today.
That is how the town was born, in a way the Kakamega-born professor of history at West Virginia University, Priscilla Shilaro, says is a case of Kenya's failed El Dorado.
Evidence of the efforts by the British to establish a gold city in Kakamega can be seen from the English and Luya wordplay in place naming.
For example, the name Ikolomani is a creative mispronunciation of the phrase, the place of gold mines, Ikolomani.
The contact between English and Luya languages resulted into what language experts call corruption or bastardization of words from the two tongues.
While the name Ikolomani is a Luya corruption of English words, Kakamega is the converse. It is an English mispronunciation of Luya words.
Myth has it that the town was named after an utterance, Kakameka, which roughly translates to, he has pinched ugali.
It is believed that a native uttered the phrase in surprise on spotting a European explorer and skillfully plucking ugali, the staple food of the people of Western Kenya.
That is how Kakamega acquired its name from mispronunciation, Kakameka.
However, the origin of the name remains undocumented, although it endures as a folk tale.
The language contact is also evident from names that are pure English leftovers, such as Rosterman, a township christened after what was a colonial-era Kakamega-based British gold mining company, the Rosterman Gold Mine Limited.
The company basked in the international limelight after floating shares on the London Stock Exchange.
At the peak of the gold rush, the Rosterman company sold to the Londoners what can be called the legendary dream El Dorado in Western Kenya.
Although Britons failed in their struggle to make the dream come true, the gold mining companies, led by Rosterman, became the genesis story of the creation of Kakamega. That is why we are proud of bringing you the School Sports Focus,
a show with stories about emerging talents. If you missed any part of the show or you want to watch it again, visit our YouTube channel, Edu Channel. And if you have a story about school sports you think we should feature, send us information through educhannel@kicd.ac.ke. You can also communicate with us through our Facebook page at EduTV Kenya 3964. Send us your self-recorded clips with your name and telephone number. We want to hear your opinion and put our focus on the sports you like.
Edu Channel, the national educator.